Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Before the founding of the hidden villages, during an era of endless wars between mankind, the Shinju, a tree revered as a deity, bore a chakra fruit once every 1,000 years. Although it was forbidden to consume the Shinju's fruit, it was eaten by Princess Kaguya Otsutsuki, who used the power it granted her to end the wars plaguing the lands. Sometime after this, Kaguya gave birth to 2 sons who became the first humans born with chakra. Angered by the power gained by her children, Kaguya manifested together with the Shinju into an incarnation that would be christened by many as the Jubi, 10 Tails, which ravaged the world attempting to reclaim its lost chakra. In the final duel between the 10 Tails and Kaguya's sons, Hagoromo Otsutsuki and Hamura Otsutsuki, they managed to defeat the beast and sealed it within Hagoromo, becoming its Jinchuriki, causing him to be revered as the Rakudo Sennin, Sage of 6 Paths, for the virtue of his victory. With his knowledge of the concept of chakra, Hagoromo traveled across the land, giving chakra to others as well as spreading his ideals and religion, ninshu, which eventually became the ability known as ninjutsu. With Hagoromo's great deeds and ultimate desire to bring peace to the war-torn world made him widely known as the Kono-yo no Kuseishu, savior of this world. Hagoromo's ultimate wish was to establish peace across the world, but it was a goal that would never be achieved in a single lifetime. Knowing this, he chose to entrust his dream and legacy to his 2 sons, Indra Otsutsuki and Asura Otsutsuki, and began teaching them ninshu. Hagoromo acknowledged Indra, his eldest son, as a true prodigy, who quickly began to revel in his natural prowess and became very solitary. Asura, his youngest son, proved to be the exact opposite, having shown no special abilities or natural talent, but he pushed on through his limitations, growing stronger and more mature because of his struggles and making friends along the way. Hagoromo acknowledged Asura's chosen path, agreeing that love and cooperation were the true key to peace. Hagoromo, later inspired by Asura, separated the Jubi's chakra within his body and used Banbutsu Sozo, creation of all things, ability to divide it into 9 separate bodies, creating the Biju and giving each of them a name. As a result of extracting them all at once, Hagoromo was left weakened and incapacitated for several months, though the powerful life force of the Jubi husk kept him alive. Hagoromo, sometime after their creation, Hagoromo told the young Biju that they were all still linked to one another despite being separate entities. Hagoromo also told them that they would eventually become one again, yet not as they originally were, and that one shall appear at that time to show them what true power is. Hagoromo eventually used Chibaku Tensai, heavenly body bursting from the earth, to seal the husk of the Jubi in what would become the moon. On his deathbed, Hagoromo chose Asura to be his successor, but Indra, overcome by bitterness and envy as well as being manipulated by a dark figure, fought against his brother, beginning a war between them that would continue through the ages and descendants. Hagoromo, suspecting that Indra or one of his reincarnations would eventually attempt to take Asura's power for themselves, he left behind a tablet detailing his history in an attempt to make them reconsider. Only those who possess the Rinnegan can fully decipher the contents of the tablet, while a reader with other dojutsu such as the Sharingan can still partially interpret the information. However, unknown to him, the dark force had altered the contents of Hagoromo's tablet so he could manipulate Indra's descendants, the Uchiha clan, through the ages into resurrecting Kaguya and initiating infinite Tsukuyomi anew. Era of the Warring States. The Warring States era is one of the most blood-soaked part of the history of ninja, where shinobi clans were formed from those who learned to wield chakra as a weapon, becoming the opposite of what the Rakudo Sennin's ninshu taught. Hundreds of clans over the centuries were born or destroyed, many of them over the course of time made elemental Kekkei Genkei or just specialized in one type of element. Such clans were the Yuki clans and their Hayaten, Ice Release, or the Suisho clans Shoten, Crystal Release, and I know Gurren may not have a clan, but I found a name that will be fitting for her clan if she did. The most notable clans to master singular elements was the Uchiha clan with their Kaden, Fire Release, along with the Sarutobi clan too. The Hazuki clan mastered Sweden, Water Release, to an art where they can turn their whole bodies to water if need be. Clans also just mastered Inten, Yin Release, to master genjutsu such as the Kurama clan to the point it became a Kekkei Genkei or master the shadows like the Nara clan. Some used it to master the mind like the Yamanaka clan. Other clans mastered Yotan, yang release, like the Akamichi to expand their bodies to become giants in battle, or like the Aburame clan who uses their bodies as hives for their Kakaichu insects. Some clans even had mastered both Onmyout and yin-yang release, but did not have it mastered to the point of the Rikudo Sennin but enough to use it. There are only 2 known clans that have Dujutsu, them being the Uchiha clan with their Sharingan and the Hyuga clan with their Byakugan. Many believing that the Sharingan was a mutation of the Byakugan because they are the exact opposites of each other. But throughout the war-torn world 2 clans always fought each other, clans that are cousins but have forgotten so because of hatred of the other. The Senju and Uchiha clans fought each other every time they went into battle for resources, power, or land. Some 5 centuries before the founding of the hidden villages, the Senju clan had been split in 2 with clan members wanting peace and wanting to stop fighting. Those Senju that left the clan eventually settled on an island surrounded by whirlpools off the coast of what would later be known as Hai no Kuni, land of fire, and Yu no Kuni, land of hot water. They then called themselves the Uzumaki after the whirlpools protecting the island. Even though the Senju and now Uzumaki clans were separate, they always stayed close in relationship and through countless marriages. While the Senju were well-rounded as a clan, the Uzumaki became extremely respected and powerful ninjas and with their use of Fuinjutsu, sealing jutsu. Unknowing to the 2 families, every few generations something unexpected would happen. Since their deaths, Indras and Asuras, chakra would transmigrate into one of their descendants. Every transmigration would happen every 5 generations, with the next being directly related to the last. But Asura's transmigration was different than Indra's. With Asura's family being split in 2, his chakra only transmigrated into those who were both Senju and Uzumaki, bringing the Kekkei Genkei, bloodline limit, back together. 25 years before the founding of Konohagakure no Sato, Hidden Leaf Village, Asura's next transmigrate reincarnation would be born as Hashirama Senju and Indra's transmigrate reincarnation would be born as Madara Uchiha. Hashirama was born as the oldest of 4 children to Batsuma Senju, leader of the Senju clan, and Momoko Senju, formerly Uzumaki. Madara was born to Tajima Uchiha, leader of the Uchiha clan, and Ranko Uchiha. 10 years later, Hashirama first came across Madara at the edge of a river where the young Uchiha was attempting to skip a stone all the way across. Easily getting a rock to the other side, Hashirama introduced himself to Madara as his rival in stone skipping, and noted that he was clearly leading. Neither Hashirama nor Madara revealed their surnames, as it was unwise in such an era. Unbeknownst to them, their clans had been in a bloody feud for ages, hired constantly by opposing factions to counterbalance the other. The 2 knew that the only way for them to survive was to befriend their enemies. As they skipped stones together, the 2 boys discovered the corpse of a member of the Hagoromo clan. Soon afterward, Hashirama attended the burial of his younger brother, Kawarama, who had been murdered by members of the Uchiha clan. Saddened by Kawarama's passing, Hashirama got into a brief altercation with his father over what he considered to be the pointless death of his brother. That moment convinced Hashirama, with his brother Tobarama's support, that there would have to be peace amongst ninja. Not long passed before Itama, Hashirama and Tobarama's other younger brother, also fell to the perils of war. The event led Hashirama to return to the riverbank, where he met with Madara once more, and with him discussed the death of Itama. Finding solace in each other's company, the 2 continued to meet by the river, where they sparred, shared techniques and talked over prospects for the future. It was during one of these meetings that Hashirama revealed his dream to create a new village where people could live in peace, and more importantly, where children could grow up and study together. It would be a place where shinobi would be assigned missions based on their level of skill and not out of necessity to fill a battlefield with forces, learned or not. Madara agreed, and the 2 children decided to build their dream village below the very cliff where they talked. However, Hashirama's friendship with the young Uchiha was not long to last, as Batsuma soon discovered from Tobarama that his son had been meeting with Madara. Revealing to Hashirama that Madara was in fact an Uchiha who had killed several of the Senju's strongest shinobi, He ordered his son to use his meetings with Madara to spy on him and, if necessary, to kill him. Still, Hashirama could not stand to betray his friend. When the two boys met again, they warned each other that a trap had been set for the other, but as they fled, they looked back in shock to find their fathers and younger brothers standing across from each other, fully ready for combat. After the initial scuffle, Madara and Hashirama intervened, getting between their respective families. Madara, realizing that he had to choose between Hashirama and their dream or his family, regretfully decided to end his friendship with the young Senju, determined to protect his brother Izuna. Hashirama tried to make Madara reconsider, but Madara refused to let go of his anger for the Senju. He announced his full name as Madara Uchiha to Hashirama, awakening his Sharingan. From then on, Madara would constantly battle Hashirama with the intent of erasing him from his past. Eventually, he and Izuna awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. With their newly obtained power, the two brothers became the head of the clan, with Madara becoming its leader. During this time, Hashirama discovered his ability to mix his Suidan and Dodan chakra and give it life to create Mokuton, wood release. Sometime afterwards, Madara and Izuna fought Hashirama and Tobirama, where Izuna was mortally wounded by Tobirama. Madara retreated and Izuna died from his wounds but left Madara his eyes, granting him the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. After Madara obtained his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Madara later confronted Hashirama again with his newfound ocular prowess, but nonetheless, after a day-long battle, Hashirama defeated the jaded Uchiha and approached him once more to create peace between their clans. However, Madara once again refused to accept, and stated that he would not trust the Senju unless Hashirama either took his own life, or that of his younger brother. Choosing suicide, Hashirama asked his brother to accept the Uchiha as allies and end their feud, but was stopped by Madara, who then accepted the truce. Era of the Hidden Villages. The Uchiha and Senju, two clans that started the Warring States period, and all the clans they had conquered finally coming together as one, to form the ninja village Madara and Hashirama once dreamed of together. Ultimately, it was Madara who named the village Konohagakure. Madara's relationship with Hashirama steadily became much like from their childhood, sharing their ideas and hopes. When Hashirama told Madara about the plans for the village leader, who would be known as the Hokage, he wished to give the title of Hokage, Fire Shadow, to Madara, and even carve his likeness onto the cliffside overlooking the village. Tobirama, however, convinced him that the villagers would never follow Madara, and that they should be given the choice of who should lead them. Hashirama reluctantly agreed. The villagers selected Hashirama over Madara for the title of Shodem Hokage, First Fire Shadow. Afterwards, Hashirama and Madara met at the Naka Shrine, where Hashirama expressed his wish that Madara inherit the title of Nidame Hokage, Second Fire Shadow. Once the villagers started seeing him in another light, however, Madara noted that Tobirama would more than likely inherit that title, and that when he did, it would not bode well for the Uchiha. Madara's breaking point, however, came after deciphering the tablet beneath the Naka Shrine and discovering the true origins of all shinobi, which left him greatly in despair upon realizing mankind became cursed to repeat history. Later, talking in the Naka Shrine for their last civil meeting, Madara told Hashirama his intent on leaving the village and he had a plan to make his dream become a reality, falling victim to the curse of hatred once again. Hashirama tried to convince Madara to let him help his childhood friend, but Madara scoffed at Hashirama's attempt to follow him, saying that no one can get behind him. Sometime after becoming Hokage, Hashirama convened the very first meeting of the Five Kage, accompanied by his brother and future successor Tobirama. Overwhelmed that the leaders of the five great shinobi countries actually attended the meeting, Hashirama lowered his head thankfully to his equals, and while admonished by his brothers and peers alike, he noted he could not help it. As the meeting got underway and Tobirama explained that the cage would have to pay for the tailed beasts they would receive, Hashirama questioned his brother, asking whether giving them away for free wasn't all right. Silenced by his brother, he listened on as the proceedings continued. As infighting broke out among the cage due to what they believed to be the Shodem Cage's brazen demand, Hashirama made his plea to them to preserve the future of their children. He also expressed concern that the peace agreement between the five of them would not last long, but he dreamed of a future where everyone would be united under one cause. Eventually, he shared the tailed beasts to other villages in an attempt to maintain peace and equalize the power between the nations, thus ending the dispute between them. Soon afterwards, Konohagakure began to prosper as Hashirama and Madara had dreamed it would in childhood, causing other nations to adopt Konoha's shinobi nation system. But Madara, abandoned by his clan, left the village, and sought out Kurama the Kyuubi no Kitsune, nine-tailed fox, and subdued it using his Sharingan. He later returned in order to challenge Hashirama in battle, fighting at the site that would later be called the Valley of the End. During the battle, Hashirama attempted to reason with Madara to stop fighting and come to his senses, but realizing that Madara would not back down, Hashirama entered Senin Modo, Sage Mode, to end the battle. With his augmented power, Hashirama was able to destroy Madara's Susanoo and subdue the Nine Tails, forcing Madara to confront Hashirama directly. The battle waged on well into the night, leaving both shinobi battered and exhausted. In a final clash, Madara was the last one standing. Looking back at Madara, Hashirama tried one more time to reason with Madara, noting how far their former shared dream had come. When Madara scoffed at the remarks, Hashirama resolved to finish Madara off, revealing himself behind Madara and stabbing him through the chest. As Madara realized the Hashirama he had clashed with was a clone, Hashirama bitterly accepted that Madara had truly relinquished his ties to their village, and declared that he would always protect it. Madara vowed that one day the village would become shrouded in darkness before finally collapsing. In the aftermath of intense battle, the defeated Madara faked his death and went into hiding, while Hashirama's wife, Mito Uzumaki, became the Nine Tails' first Jinchuriki, power of a human sacrifice, by sealing the beast within herself. The devastation to the terrain which ensued from this battle were so great that it created an entire land formation that eventually became known as the Valley of the End. Thinking about the future of Konoha, he also trained the young Hiruzen Sarutobi, one of his brother's team members. He lived long enough to meet his first grandchild, Tsunade, and noted that he had spoiled her a great deal, even going as far as to teach her how to gamble. Hashirama died some time after the founding of Konoha in one of the many wars that were raging during this revolutionary era, but not before passing on the title of Hokage to Tobirama. Konohagakure no Sato 20 years before Kyuubi attack. This was the era of the Second Shinobi World War. Those who were on leave were having fun before going off to war again to most likely die, by getting drunk, dancing, and of course getting lucky, so they let loose. Except for one busty blonde beauty who wore her hair in two pigtails with her bangs drooped down the sides of her face, and she wore a Jonin uniform. The woman had a sour look on her face that said, "I'm not in the mood, fuck off." "Hey Tsunadeheim, there you are." The woman now identified as Tsunade looked to her right to see perverted baka of a teammate Jiraiya. "What do you want to pervert?" Tsunade said in a sour tone. "Aw come on Tsunade, don't be like that, have some fun," said Jiraiya in a happy tone with a huge grin. "I'll be however I want to be, you slimy perverted bastard. Why don't you just go die alone away from me?" Tsunade said in a harsh tone, but Jiraiya couldn't blame her. War always led to death, and wounds of Tsunade's father, Tenchi Senju's, death were still there. "Tsunade, you know this was bound to happen, but I promise you that no one else you love is going to die like Tenchi did if I have anything to say about it," said Jiraiya. "Shut the fuck up, you have no right to speak his name, you rotten bastard," she yelled with tears forming in her eyes. "He was a friend of mine, Tsunade, I know how important he was to you, but you still have your brother and grandmother here." Jiraiya explained. Shut up, I loved my father, I feel all alone now that he's gone, you inconsiderate asswhole. Tsunade yelled ith fury and swung her fist at Jiraiya, only for her punch to be stopped by her teammate grabbing her wrist before fist could connect. Jiraiya then pulled Tsunade in a compassionate hug which surprised her. "That's not true, you still have Sarutobi-sensei, Orochimaru, your brother and grandmother, and me. And I promise I will never leave your side, because I love you," Jiraiya exclaimed. "I always have and always will." Jiraiya's words had made Tsunade cry tears of joy and sadness. "Thank you Jiraiya," whispered Tsunade. "Anytime Haim, let me buy you a drink," stated Jiraiya. Thank goodness the drinks are free, or else Jiraiya would have gone broke. A few hours and many drinks later, we find our current hero and heroine of this era, drunk as a skunk leaning on each other having a good time. "Oh Jiraiya-kun, you treat me so well," said an intoxicated Tsunade nibbling on Jiraiya's earlobe. "Anything for you Tsunade-chan tilde," replied Jiraiya equally intoxicated and grinning like a pervert. "Come on," said Tsunade while dragging Jiraiya out of the bar they were in. "Where are we going Tsunadeheim?" questioned a drunken Jiraiya. "You'll see," said Tsunade with a sly smile. They both arrived at the Senju clan estate, which made Jiraiya more curious, and the two traveled the upper floor where Tsunade sleeps. "Tsunadeheim, what are we doing here?" Jiraiya asked. His answer was Tsunade jumping him and kissing him. She pushed him into her room, locked the door, pushed him onto her bed and, you get the idea. The next morning, Jiraiya, a scream awoke the Gamma Sennin, Toad Sage. "Huh? What happened?" Jiraiya asked. He turned in the direction of the voice, to see a naked and pissed off Tsunade with an expression that said ready to kill. Now normally Jiraiya would run while he still had the chance, but he was distracted with Tsunade's mountains that were exposed in all their incredible glory. Suddenly while he was distracted by the glorious mounds, Tsunade punched Jiraiya with so much force he went through the wall and landed on the other side of the village. Unfortunately for him it was in the women's side of the hot springs. Throughout all this after Tsunade's sobering punch Jiraiya had one thought, what did I do? A few weeks later, in the weeks following Tsunade and Jiraiya's little incident, we find Tsunade sitting in the Senju clan compound in turmoil about a new discovery she uncovered just that morning. She was pregnant. Tsunade's Senju heiress to the Senju clan, granddaughter to the Shodai Hokage, lead medic of Konohagakure Hospital, was pregnant. Not just pregnant, but pregnant with Jiraiya's, her perverted teammate's child. She didn't know what to do. She didn't want to go to her sensei because he would have to tell the council, and the council will make a big deal about it. So she went to one person who she could trust, her grandmother Mito Uzumaki. Flashback. Few hours ago, Tsunade was walking through the Senju compound towards her grandmother's little house in one of the many forests, in the compound where she moved to after her grandfather died, and Tenchi her father became clan head. As she headed for the door she soon came upon it and knocked. Tap, tap, tap. "Come in Tsunade, I'm in the kitchen," said the old weak voice of Mito Uzumaki. I presume Mito has the ability to sense chakra and discern whose chakra is whose. Tsunade then walked in, taking her heels at the door, and headed toward the back of the house where the kitchen was. "Hello Mito Ba-chan," Tsunade said, greeting her grandmother with a hug too. "Hello Tsunade-chan, what brings you here?" asked Mito in a welcoming but concerned voice. "Can I not come visit my grandmother?" asked Tsunade. "Well, normally that wouldn't be a problem Tsunade-chan, but I sense that your emotions are in turmoil and you never visit me unless you want advice on training, or to vent about that teammate of yours," stated Mito with amusement, making Tsunade pout. "Well, it's about my teammate again," stated Tsunade with a little venom in her tone. 3 weeks ago when I was mourning father's death, I was drinking in the shinobi-only bar 4 blocks away from the Junin lounge, and Jiraiya showed up. We got into a little spat, and he said he loved me and won't let anything happen to me like what happened to Dasan, Tsunade stated quietly. He then offered to get me drinks and we both drank for a couple of hours. I don't remember what happened after that, but I woke up the next morning naked right next to him, so I punched him out of my room, through the wall, exclaimed Tsunade with anger in her voice. Last week I was supposed to start menstruating, but it didn't happen. Then at the start of this week I started to get morning sickness. I didn't want to believe it, so I went to the hospital to get checked out, and I'm pregnant. Tsunade exclaimed, saddened that her ninja career was going to end now, but mad at Jiraiya for getting her pregnant. What should I do, Ba-chan? War is about to break out with Iwa and Suna, and I can't stay and raise a baby that will most likely become a target if word gets out I'm going to have a child. The hospital will need me along with Jiraiya and Orochimaru if we all go out on missions together, hysterically stated Tsunade with a frustrated look on her face. Have you talked to Hiruzen about this yet? Questioned Mito. No, I have not said a word to Sarutobi-sensei about it, because he would have to tell the council and that Warhawk Danzo about it, and they will make it a big deal. Danzo may or may not try and take the child from me. Soon after, more than likely the whole of Konoha would find out about it, then the rest of the elemental nations. Soon after my child and me would become a target of assassination for being related to the Senju, especially grandfather, replied Tsunade and Mito, nodding knowingly. Have the child. When it comes, put it in the orphanage till the war is over, then come and claim the child later as yours, stated Mito wisely. I would say leave it here with his or her great Oba-chan, but alas, I am but an old woman living alone with my granddaughter Akunoichi, and my grandson well on his way to becoming a shinobi. Are you sure that's wise, Ba-chan? What would happen if someone found out the baby is mine in the meantime? Asked Tsunade, with concern in her voice. Yes, Tsunade, that is the wisest thing to do if you are not here to take care of the child, because it showed you cared enough to offer a home to the child that you yourself could not have provided at the time. And I don't think anyone would find out the child is yours if you take great caution and precaution in hiding him from the world till the time is right. Mito stated wisely, like the wise old lady she is. She knew what it's like to raise a child during wartime, even when it was hard on her when her husband wasn't around to comfort her. Tsunade was thinking it over in her head about the pros of this, her child being safe and being taken care of like it should be. The cons about it is she wouldn't be able to watch him, her grow up, and wouldn't be able to train or help him or her if she joins the academy and wants to become a ninja. So Tsunade steeled her resolve to protect her child at all costs and eventually come back for him. Then her eyes widened when she remembered something. What do I tell Jiraiya? How do I tell him he got me pregnant, and that I will be put it in the orphanage till the war's end? Tsunade asked frantically, wanting to get an answer from Mito. You tell him nothing until the war is over for the protection of future generations of the Senju clan. The less amount of people who know about the child the better, so enemies of the Senju in and out of the village don't send assassins beforehand if they find out prematurely of who the parents are. Replies Mito in a tone that left no more room for argument. Even if Jiraiya is Tobirama's grandson, I cannot let the heir to the Senju clan be a target before he can even talk. Thought Mito. Now do you want some tea, Tsunade-chan? Asked Mito with smile. Flashback end. 9 months later. It has been 9 months since Tsunade talked to her grandmother about what to do about her child. Afterwards she went to her sensei to ask for an extended mission away from Jiraiya and the village, which he granted to her because he understood her plight, but not knowing the real reason behind it. It was also during this time that Jiraiya received a prophecy concerning him while training on Mount Myoboku from Gamamaru the Ogama Sennin, great toad sage. Firstly saying that he would go on to become a talented shinobi and a pervert without equal. He would also walk across the world as a sage, observing all creation, watching as nature takes its course, and in doing so he would also write a book. The Gama Sennin Aslso told Jiraiya that he would one day have a student with the power to save or destroy the world, and that it would be his actions that would determine which path the student took. It was after Jiraiya found out Tsunade left that he went to his sensei and told him about the prophecy the toad sage gave him. Flashback 9 months earlier. Jiraiya was walking through the Senju compound, closing in the clan headhouse, on his way to talk to Tsunade about what happened between them a few weeks before. He was almost there when he sensed a chakra signature to his right coming towards him from the forests in the direction of Mito's little house. Jiraiya then honed his senses to see who it was, and found out that it was Mito herself on the way to see him, most likely sensing him too, so he waited for her to meet up with him. It only took a few minutes for her to show, and when she did she started speaking. She's not here. She started to explain. Where did she go? Jiraiya questioned, already knowing he isn't going to like it. Hiruzen gave her an extended mission at her own request. She won't be back for 10 months. Replied Mito, irked that she was interrupted. Why'd she do that? Asked a confused Jiraiya, not knowing the real reason like Hiruzen. She needed to get away from the village for a short time, so she can finish copying with the loss of her father. Said Mito, I suggest that you not go searching for her either. You know how she gets when she is upset, and I'm sure that Hiruzen won't like that either. Finished Mito, knowing Jiraiya knew how Tsunade gets when upset and that Hiruzen won't like Jiraiya taking off to go after her. I know what you mean. Stated Jiraiya, a shiver going down his spine remembering being punched across the village. Jiraiya then sighed and after thanking Mito, turned and left the compound, thinking about what he would say to Tsunade the next time he saw her. Which soon lead him to thinking about traveling the world like the toad sage said he would be doing after visiting his sensei. Hokage office. Jiraiya just arrived outside the window to Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage's office to tell him about the prophecy that he received from the great Toad Sage. And knocked, hearing a faint, "Come in," from the Hokage sitting at his desk doing the bane of all cages, paperwork. Jiraiya opened the window and hopped in saying, "Hey sensei, how's it going?" asked Jiraiya smiling at his sensei. "Ah, Jiraiya-kun, it's nice to see you again. How was your training with the toads?" asked the Hokage smiling at Jiraiya. "It was very fulfilling to say the least sensei, got started training in Senjutsu Chakra, Sage Chakra. And received a prophecy from the Ogama Sennin regarding me," stated Jiraiya in a happy tone before becoming serious. Hiruzen became serious after that statement too and asked, "What is this prophecy you speak of?" questioned the Hokage, curious about what it would be. "The prophecy the great sage gave me said, that I would go on to become a talented shinobi, and a pervert without equal. I would also walk across the world as a sage, observing all creation, watching as nature takes its course, and in doing so I would also write a book. The Gama Sennin also told me that I would one day have a student with the power to save or destroy the world, and that it would be my actions that would determine which path this student took. So it looks like I have to travel the world like the sage said and find this child of prophecy," said Jiraiya looking at his sensei with determination in his eyes. Looks like you have a big responsibility and duty ahead of yourself, Jiraiya," stated the Sandaime. "So am I able to leave on this mission, sensei?" asked Jiraiya still in the serious tone. "If what you told me is true, then I see no reason for you not to go on a training trip of sorts for a short time to find this child of prophecy, and find inspiration for that book you are supposed to write," replied the Hokage. "Thank you sensei, I will leave within the next few days, so I guess I will see you when you call me back to the village," stated Jiraiya with a smile and jumped back out the window. Sarutobi turned in his chair to look out the window towards the village and thought, "I hope you do find this child of prophecy, Jiraiya, because from what you told me the prophecy says you will change the world." And with that the Sandaime went back to doing his paperwork. Flashback end. Konohagakure no Sato 1 a.m. It was 1 in the morning in Konoha with only a few people out and about, at bars and having fun, most of them inactive shinobi who were on leave from the war that started just a few months ago. With the First Shinobi World War ending with an armistice treaty, it left the 5 great shinobi nations seriously wounded. The treaty led to the last 16 years of peace, until the economic disparity between the countries had become a serious problem. The nations began to form factions, and under the pretext of expanding fair rights, the countries started to use military force to expand their territories. Thus, the war started. First, it was Tsunade trying to expand its territory into what would later be known as Kawa no Kuni, so it would have farmland for crops and water going into the country. Kirigakure soon followed, trying to get parts of the mainland so Mizu no Kuni would have some form of mainland territory. Finally, it was Iwagakure and Konohagakure. Konohagakure invaded Aim no Kuni first, after Konoha Intelligence Division found out after capturing an Iwa spy, that they were going to attack Aim to get to Hai no Kuni's borders and have a foothold for later expanding. It was why Tsunade Senju was moving around the Konoha at 1 in the morning with a bundle in her arms. The bundle in her arms was her baby boy that she had at an undisclosed location with a couple of hired midwives from a town somewhere in Hai no Kuni. Now she was finally in the leaf where she would take her and Jiraiya's baby to the orphanage till she can come back and take care of him. She decided to give her baby after her grandfather, Hashirama. Her baby had blonde hair like her, but it was spiky like his father's. He had cerulean blue eyes like her mother, but had features of his father there. She soon arrived at the orphanage and looked down at Hashirama. "I promise I will come back for you, when the war is over. But until then, stay safe here at this nice home where you can make friends so I don't have to live in fear of you being attacked and you won't grow up lonely," Tsunade said with tears rolling down her face. She kissed Hashirama's head as he started crying and put him down on the front step, pulled out a note with his name on it and a short note, "Take care of him till I return." She knocked and fled through the forest into the village away from the orphanage, though she did not notice the small gust of wind that blew by the front door, and whisked the card with the name and note on it away into the nearby river. It was at that moment the door opened and a young woman in her early 20s walked out. She then heard the crying baby and looked down. She gasped and picked the baby up into her arms. "It's okay little one, you don't have to be afraid, I'm here," said the young woman. The baby stopped crying and opened his eyes for the first time. The child had gorgeous cerulean eyes and he looked up at the woman curiously. "Aren't you adorable?" she said. "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." With this the baby giggled with an adorable smile. The young woman took the infant in her arms inside the orphanage. "You have a name, right?" the woman asked. Only for her response only to be stared at with a confused look. "Of course not, I'll call you Minato. Do you like that name?" The baby giggled at the name. "I guess you do. My name is Haruko, and it's nice to meet you, Minato," Haruko said with a smile looking at the giggling baby. 12 years before Kyuubi attack. It has been 8 years since the night Tsunade dropped her Minato off at the orphanage and left to fight in the war. The war lasted 6 years. 6 years that saw to the death of thousands of shinobi and kunoichi. But the rise of many heroes and heroines, throughout the elemental nations, and saw the death of many others. After Minato was left at the orphanage, Tsunade went to the front lines against Tsunagakure. There she became known as the world's best medic nin fro, her use of medic skills and her knowledge to counter Chiyo the puppet mistress's poison that was used against Konoha forces. It was 4 years later when Tsunade learned from her younger brother that he wanted to become Hokage like their grandfather and surpass him. Tsunade then gave him their grandfather's necklace in the hopes that it would help him achieve his dream. The day after his birthday, Nawaki died in battle after running into an explosive trap. Orochimaru was with him, along with 2 other genin. His body was so heavily mutilated that it was beyond recognition. The necklace was retrieved by Orochimaru and returned to a devastated Tsunade. Tsunade was consoled by Jiraiya and Orochimaru, who were both visually crying at her loss. In the same year, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru would battle the feared leader of Omegakure no Sato, Sanchuo no Hanzo the Salamander. It was here that Hanzo would give them a title feared throughout the elemental nations, Densetsu no Sannin, legendary 3 ninja. After the battle, the Sannin met Nagato, Konan, and Yahiko, who wanted to become ninja to bring peace to AIM and then the rest of the world. Jiraiya would stay behind and look after them for a short time, but will eventually be inspired by Nagato in his creation of his first book, Tales of an Utterly Gutsy Ninja. After 3 years, Jiraiya left and returned to the Leaf, never seeing or hearing from those 3 again. It was after the battle Tsunade went back to the Leaf to advocate for the inclusion of medical ninja to be incorporated into teams that were on the battlefield, but unable to, as Hiruzen informs her the conflict makes it impossible for them to utilize resources or the time to train such ninja. It was by that time that a discouraged Tsunade met Dan Kato, who seconds her request of focusing on finding ways to save their comrades' lives on the battlefield. In time, finding herself and Dan have similar ideals, Tsunade fell in love with him. As a sign of her affection, and in the hopes that this time it would help make his dreams come true, Tsunade gave him Hashirama's necklace prior to his death, with the necklace returning to her possession, rumored as a cursed item that kills anyone other than Tsunade who wears it. Developing hemophobia, which renders her unable to take part in any more battles, the deaths of both Nawaki and Dan disillusioned Tsunade to see the Hokage title as nothing but a fool's position. Jiraiya would come home to the love of his life with another man, but bear with it because he knows that even if he did love her, she didn't love him. So Jiraiya put himself into his work and became well renowned because of it. Less than a year and a half later, Jiraiya would receive word that Dan Kato, Tsunade's lover, died on the battlefield, and that she became cold-hearted and distant. It has 6 years after the start of the war and the death of brother and Dan, that she finally went to claim her child she left at the orphanage so long ago, only to find something horrible. 14 years before Kyuubi attack. It has been 6 years. 6 years since she took her son there, and left him to go fight in the war and protect her village and precious people. She left him there to protect him from the enemies of the clan in and out of the village. So now 6 years afterwards we find Tsunade Senju on her way back to Konohagakure no Sato after R&R away from Konoha, to mourn the deaths of her brother and lover. She was walking down the main roadway toward Konoha's eastern gate. She was going at it slowly because she didn't want to rush to the village right away. She was still in turmoil about what happened to Dan and Nawaki, but she had to find her son. Him and her grandmother were all that was left of her family. Tsunade was close to the gate, now less than 100 meters away. She arrived at the gate to see the gate guards guarding the gates at the post that was set up next to it. They notice her as she walks up to the post to sign in like all shinobi and kunoichi have to do after a leave of absence or mission. It was different than civilians who can leave anytime they want to. After signing in, she started walking towards her clan compound so she can get ready to go to the orphanage that she dropped her son off at. As she was walking, she was receiving waves and smiles from civilians and ninja alike. She didn't mind it at all, but she didn't care for what they were doing. She only had one goal in mind, and that was to get her son back. She soon arrived at her compound and walked through the gates. As she was walking, she thought about visiting her grandmother to see how she was doing, because Mito was so close to her death and she wouldn't last long before she died. Thinking it over, she decided to go and see her grandmother before she went home to get ready for the meeting of her son. She made her way through the forest within the compound and saw the house her grandmother lived in come into view. It took her a minute or two to get to the house and knock on the door. She soon heard a very, very faint, "Come in," and knew something was wrong. She opened the door and walked in. She didn't know what to expect, so she kept her guard up just in case of an attack. She soon found Mito in her room on her bed, covered up with a blanket and an IV attached to her wrist. Tsunade walked over to Mito with a little hesitation, but did so nonetheless. Mito looked over and smiled weakly at her granddaughter, happy to see her for the first time in a few years. Tsunade smiled back with a smile that did not reach her eyes with a look of sadness and regret. "Tsunade-chan," said Mito weakly. "It's good to see you after these past few tragic years," added Mito. "Hi Ba-chan, it's good to see you too," replied Tsunade, some happiness returning to her eyes. "How are you doing, Ba-chan? I didn't know you were bedridden," stated Tsunade with her sadness returning. "Ah, this is nothing. I am fine, just a little older than the last time you saw me," said Mito with a small amount of amusement in her voice. "Hee, I see that, Ba-chan," Tsunade said while giggling a bit in amusement at her grandmother's old lady jokes. "But there are things we need to discuss, Tsunade, that are going to make your heart hurt a lot more than it already is," stated Mito, becoming serious in the blink of an eye like all Uzumaki do when something important is happening or needs to be said and heard. "The first thing that we need to talk about is your child you left at the orphanage on the other side of the village," continued Mito before being interrupted by Tsunade. "What about him? Has something happened to him or the orphanage?" stated a fear-stricken Tsunade with a gut feeling something bad happened to her child. "Yes, something did happen to him and the orphanage," stated Mito. "And don't interrupt me again," reprimanded Mito, with Tsunade rubbing her neck with one hand, chuckling embarrassed about what she did. "Tsunade, I'm not going to sugarcoat this to make it sound better, but a few years ago an Iwa spy was found within the village and he started to flee. When he fled in the direction of the orphanage," stated a solemn Mito with tears at the corner of her eyes. "He neared the orphanage and to get the Konoha shinobi of his tail he threw 5 kunai with explosive tags attached to them at the building." Mito was now in tears, and Tsunade knew from the start something bad happened, and now that she knew she started crying as Mito continued. "They did everything they could to save as many of the children as possible, but they only got 15 out of the 60 that were there." Mito now had tear tracks running down her cheeks, while Tsunade was sobbing into her hand and couldn't control herself. Mito finally had the courage to continue with the next part of what she was meaning to tell Tsunade. "Tsunade," Mito said in all seriousness as she possibly could at the moment while still crying tears of sadness. "There is more that you need to know. I am getting old and I have a burden that needs to be passed on to another Uzumaki," said Mito. "That Uzumaki was brought here a year ago just before Uzushiogakure, my home village, was attacked and destroyed by a joint operation of Kumo, Iwa, Kiri, and Yugakure. Her name is Kushina Uzumaki," said Mito. "There is something you also don't know. But when your grandfather fought Madara Uchiha at the Valley of the End and stopped Madara's control over the Kyuubi, it was not let free but sealed away into a human host. A human host that happens to be me," Mito exclaimed to Tsunade, drawing a gasp of surprise from the weeping women. "But why do you have the Kyuubi sealed within you? Why would you want to become its Jinchuriki?" stated Tsunade with shock and surprise that her grandmother would willingly become a human sacrifice. "I sealed the Kyuubi within me to keep it tranquil and to help your grandfather defend the leaf against the power of the Biju, and Madara's warpath for its destruction," said Mito. "But why are you having to do that now of all times when I need you the most? You are the last family I have left here at home in Konoha," exclaimed Tsunade while trying to wrap her head around the thought of not having her grandmother around. I have to do it soon, because if I die the Kyuubi will 2 and 3 years after that it will be reborn back in the place it died at. Stated Mito. So if I don't do it the village will be destroyed and Hashirama's dream will be all for naught. Tsunade thought about it, and it did make sense for her grandmother to transfer the Kyuubi to this Kushina girl, for the leaf to still be around after her death. After that thought though she started crying again because not only did she lose her son but she will now be losing her grandmother too. Tsunade looked at Mito with eyes that had nothing but sadness in them. She then said, if you have to do it, do it. If it is for Gigi's village then so be it. After you are gone I am going to leave the village for some time. I just won't be able to stay here with all my family gone and no attachment to the village left. Said an emotional Tsunade. I know how you feel Tsunade-chan, stated Mito. I lost most of my clan's men and women in this last war with the rest all scattered throughout the elemental nations, and no way of contacting them. The only ones that I know of is you and Kushina-chan. Just remember Tsunade-chan, I will always love you no matter what path you take. Mito said with a small smile. Tsunade smiled back with a small smile to remembering all the good times with her family and grandmother. I love you Ba-chan, I'm going to miss you when you are gone. I will miss you too and I will be watching over you wherever you go. Remember that, said Mito. Tsunade started to get up to leave, but not before leaning down to kiss her grandmother's head and saying, goodbye, to her and left not looking back. She would not return to the leaf for the next 15 years. But what she didn't know along with Mito is that her son lives. He was adopted at the age of 1.5 and lived with a civilian family the Namikaze. 4 years later, his adoptive parents would die in another village trying to make a business deal to help fund Konoha for its war effort. He became an orphan once again but the Hokage and the other councils let him get an apartment, because he was in the village's ninja academy aiming to become a ninja and protect the leaf like his adoptive parents. 12 years before Kyuubi attack. It was a beautiful day in Konohagakure no Sato with the sun shining and a nice breeze running through the village to where it is not too hot in places from the heat of Hai no Kuni. Today also marked the start of a new generation of shinobi who will protect the leaf from her enemies and defend her interests throughout the shinobi world. The graduates this year all compose of clan heirs or heiresses, ranging from the Hyuga, to Yamanaka, and Kurama clans. There is also the Nara, Akamichi, Aburame, and Inazuka. Even a clan from outside the leaf but has close ties with the village has a student here and her name is Kushina Uzumaki, last known clan member of her clan that is thought to be extinct after this last war excluding her of course. But the most notable is the Uchiha clan which is the most prestigious clan in the leaf following the Senju clan, whom from what the shinobi world thinks is all but extinct with the only survivor being Tsunade Senju. But what the world doesn't know even the Hokage and Tsunade, is that the heir of the Senju clan is not Tsunade, but a boy that goes by the name Minato Namikaze, a boy that is a true prodigy in his own right. The only other person to be this great a prodigy would have been Orochimaru of the Sannin. A boy who is the supposed dead son of Tsunade Senju and Jiraiya of the Sannin that only she knows about after the death of her grandmother Mito Uzumaki. But today is the Genin graduation day, a day where students of the Ninja Academy passed the final academy exam that their senseis gave them to finally become ninja of Konoha. It was a step closer for Minato to become Hokage like he dreamed about to earn the respect admiration of all of Konohagakure no Sato. He didn't know how true those words would ring throughout the ninja world. Kushina also wanted to become the first female Hokage so people won't see her as an outsider or call her names because of her hair, and respect her. This was also the day Jiraiya would meet his son for the first time and not know of it. He would wonder for many years why he felt a connection between him and Minato, but that's for another time. Now we see our current hero and heroine sitting in a classroom waiting for their teacher Sabachi Amino, future father to Iruka Amino, to say their team assignments for who is on their team and who their sensei is going to be. The names of the students from clans are Shibi Aburame, Hiyashi Hyuga, Sume Inazuka, Inoichi Yamanaka, Choza Akamichi, Shikaku Nara, Mebuki Yamanaka, Kushina Uzumaki, Makoto Uchiha, Murakumo Kurama, and Takashi Kohaku. The civilian-born, orphans or adopted orphans were Kazashi Haruno, Minato Namikaze, Senju, Tuchi Ichiraku, and a few other irrelevant civilian-born students that have no correlation with the story. Now it has been a few minutes since the class started, and it was starting to get noisy with the class getting restless. But that ended when Sabachi cleared his throat to get the class's attention, and it worked. All eyes were on him. Alright class, today is your last day as my official students and your first day as ninja of Konohagakure no Sato, stated Sabachi, getting choruses of cheers from the class. It took a few minutes for the class to settle down again. Now let's begin with the team assignments that Hokage-sama set for you all. Let's start with Team 1. Team 7, Kushina Uzumaki, Minato Namikaze, Tuchi Ichiraku under Jiraiya of the Sannin. Team 8, Shibi Aburame, Hiyashi Hyuga, Sume Inazuka under Kagami Uchiha. Team 9, Mebuki Yamanaka, Kazashi Haruno, Makoto Uchiha under Fuki Kohaku. Team 10, Inoichi Yamanaka, Choza Akamichi, Shikaku Nara under Tojiro Sarutobi. Finished Sabachi, getting some good reactions but also some disappointed ones also. These will be your teams until you all are either Chunin, one of you becomes a Chunin, or none of you become one at all, stated Sabachi with seriousness seen only when he's lecturing about the ninja arts and what they are for. So now that that is all out of the way, you will have to wait a little bit for your senseis to get here to take you wherever they want you to meet, said Sabachi matter-of-factly. This got the class to start talking and being excited. 8-year-olds, they went straight into saying they got the best senseis because are saying that it's no far an orphan, an outsider, and a civilian got Jiraiya the Sannin as a sensei. Some even went as far as saying that they tricked the Hokage into giving them Jiraiya as their sensei. But hey, they're kids that don't know how the rules work. What these kids don't know is that it is this generation that will change the future for the better, for the next 10 generations of ninja to come. 12 years later, 10th day of the 10th month, Kyuubi attacks. It has been 12 years since their graduation day and becoming students of Jiraiya of the Sannin. It was after they became teammates that Kushina was kidnapped by Kumo Ninja because of her special chakra. She left behind a trail of her hair for people to follow and find her. The only person out of hundreds of ninja, only one person was able to find her, and that was Minato Namikaze. He found her because he thought her hair was beautiful. It was after that Kushina Uzumaki fell in love with Minato Namikaze, secretly Senju, whom no one knows about, and later married him. Minato also at the age of 18 became the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha over Orochimaru. Now we find ourselves with them in their home in one of the civilian neighborhoods of Konoha with Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage, and his wife Bawako Sarutobi. Kushina, said Hiruzen, there's something important that I must explain to you about giving birth as a Jinchuriki. Continued Hiruzen, it was the same way with Mito-sama. When she gave birth, the Kyuubi's seal almost came completely undone. I apologize, but considering the worst case scenario, we've decided to have you give birth inside a barrier, away from Konoha, finished Hiruzen. I'll be there too. I do have to monitor the seal, said Minato, getting a smile and a nod from Kushina. Minato and Taji of the Anbu Black Ops will accompany you, as will my wife Bawako, stated Hiruzen in a stoic manner. This must be done in the utmost secrecy. Kushina hummed her agreement. You will have bodyguards as well. They'll all be Anbu Black Ops directly assigned by me, finished Hiruzen. Minato moved his hand over to Kushina's, which got her attention. I'll go on ahead and make sure everything's ready, stated Minato, getting a nod and smile of affection from Kushina. And I shall guide you to the location, said Bawako seriously. Kushina, yelled Bawako, getting Kushina's attention away from Minato. Oh, yes, thank you, I appreciate it, said Kushina with embarrassed smile on her face as Minato left the house, closing the door behind him. Short time later, we should leave soon, said Bawako outside the house a few hours later. Hi, exclaimed Kushina as they started walking through the streets of the village. Soon after the start of their walk, Kushina and Bawako ran into Makoto Uchiha, who was holding her son. Oh, wow, you had a girl, said Kushina excitedly. Haha, no, he's a boy, replied Makoto back to Kushina with a smile. Oh, what a little cutie, said Kushina. Hi there, little guy, what's your name, handsome? Asked Kushina, giggling at how cute the baby was. It's Sasuke-kun, said Makoto while smiling down at her son, also getting Bawako's attention with the name. Oh, he was named after the father of Sandaime-sama then, was he? Asked Bawako. Yes, so you will grow up and be a strong, splendid shinobi. Said Makoto. You're due pretty soon to, aren't you, Kushina-chan? You ought to start thinking about baby names as well. Questioned, then stated Makoto with a smirk on her face towards her friend. Actually, started Kushina with a finger raised and smiling with her eyes closed. I've already decided, we're going to call him Naruto. He'll be classmates with little Sasuke-kun here. I hope you two get along. Stated Kushina, rubbing Sasuke's head affectionately while smiling happily and giggling a little. Then Kushina got a dark aura around her head and asked Makoto, by the way, does it really hurt like they say? Questioned Kushina. Makoto stared at her for a second, then said with a smirk, wow, so there's actually something that scares you, shocking. She said with a laugh. It was after this that Bawako started to drag Kushina away, saying, come, let's go, Kushina. Yes, ma'am, replied Kushina, laughing a little. The details of your birthing are supposed to secret, remember. Until we get to our location we must avoid all contact with anyone including friends. Stated Bawako, seriously, getting a, yes ma'am, from Kushina and an embarrassed smile. Sorry about that, she continued. Also, although we will be outside the village, this is to remain covert, so when your labor pains start do not cry out, understand? Exclaimed Bawako as serious as she could. Oh, yes ma'am, replied Kushina. A few hours later. Ah, it hurts, Databane. Ah, yelled out a pained Kushina, who was in labor. In the cave with the barrier surrounding them while Kushina gives birth. I've never seen Kushina-chan in so much pain before that she's cried out like this. Said Minato with worry in his voice. Is she really going to be okay? He asked with more concern. Hi, she's going to be fine now, forget about that and just stay focused on the Kyuubi's seal. Ordered Bawako to Minato. Ah, screamed out Kushina in more labor pains. Okay, but she's so, started Minato. You're the Yondaime Hokage, Minato. Now act like it and get a grip. Most men would have dropped dead from such pain long ago. But women are much stronger. Exclaimed Bawako to Minato, trying to assure him. Inside the seal, the Kyuubi was trying to get out as Minato was using his chakra to hold it back in the seal. Hey, he's so strong, the Kyuubi is writhing to get out, thought Minato. Hang in there, Kushina-chan, yelled Minato. Naruto, come out. Outside the cave, and barrier, a figure in a dark cloak with an orange mask with stripes on it was at work killing the Anbu, protecting the cave from the outside. After he finished he started moving toward the surrounding cliff. As he walked to the cliff he walked right through the rock like it was tangible. Back inside the cave things were looking up. I can see the head now. Stated Bawako to Minato and Kushina. You're almost there, Kushina. Just hang in there, you're doing great. Said Taji. While this was going on the Kyuubi was still trying to get out. Naruto. Hurry up, come out, yelled Minato. You stay in, Kyuubi, continued Minato. It was a very tense moment with Minato trying to keep the Kyuubi back and Kushina pushing to give birth to Naruto. Then within a minute or two there were the sounds of a baby crying filling the air of the cavern. Hot water now, exclaimed Bawako urgently. Got it, replied Taji. All was silent besides baby Naruto crying. Kushina started crying tears of joy because she knew that her baby was here finally after 10 months. He's really here, said Minato quietly. Minato started to cry tears of joy, also happy that he was a father now. She did it, I'm a father, exclaimed Minato happily. Hi, you have a healthy baby boy, Minato, said Bawako with smile on her face as she walked towards Kushina. Naruto, said Minato happily as Bawako walked close to him with baby Naruto in her hands as he tried grabbing Naruto. Hands off, said Bawako sternly. Mother first, father second, stated Bawako matter-of-factly. So Naruto-kun, we finally meet, said Kushina between breaths. Now, you will have more time later, said Bawako. Now my child, Bawako said, trying to calm baby Naruto down. While this was going on, Minato put a comforting hand on Kushina to reassure her before speaking. Kushina, are you feeling all right now? Questioned Minato to Kushina. I'm okay, replied Kushina back to Minato with smiles on both of their faces. Thank you, said Minato quietly to Kushina. Minato, replied Kushina with a smaller happy smile and tears of joy running down her face. Alright, said Minato. Now I realize what you've just been through, but we need to reseal the Kyuubi. It was at that moment that there was a piercing scream running through the cavern. Minato looked over to see Bawako and Taji fall over dead from an unknown masked assailant. "Bawako-sama! Taji!" yelled Minato, looking at the masked assailant who just killed Bawako and Taji and was holding his son captive. "Yondaime Hokage, Minato," said the masked man, "step away from the Jinchuriki, or else this child will die in its first minute." He continued. There was a stare down between them both as Minato thought, how the hell did he get past the barrier? Who is he? Thought Minato as he prepared to attack the masked man holding his son. But while this was going on, the seal on Kushina hold the Kyuubi back was deteriorating at a fast rate without the help from Minato repairing the seal, which was causing Kushina tremendous pain and to scream. "Kushina-chan!" yelled Minato with a lot of concern for his wife. "No, the Kyuubi's seal is," thought Minato. "Get away from the Jinchuriki. Don't you care about what happens to the brat?" said the masked man as he pulled out a kunai and held it to Naruto's throat. "Wait please, just stay calm," pleaded Minato to the masked man, hoping he can see reason. "Speak for yourself." "I am as calm as can be, Minato," said the masked man as he threw Naruto up into the air and went to stab him with the kunai in his hand, and getting a yell from Kushina. "Naruto!" yelled Kushina as she watched her child be thrown up into the air and the masked man launch at him with the kunai in hand, only to see Minato use his Hiraishin no Jutsu to catch Naruto before he can be stabbed. "Leave it, the Konoha no Kiroi Senko, yellow flash of the leaf." "But what about the next one?" said the masked man while doing a half Hitsuji, ram, seal, which ignited explosive tags on the bottom of the blanket covering Naruto. "Minato-kun, Naruto!" yelled out Kushina as she saw the explosive tags and watched them explode. But before the explosive tags went off, Minato Hiraishined to a safe house that he had set up for such occasions. "Thank goodness Naruto wasn't injured," stated Minato with relief. But he felt pain in his right leg, so he looked down and saw that a wooden shrapnel was lodged in his leg. "He forced me to use the Hiraishin no Jutsu. His target was Kushina, and he succeeded in separating us," thought Minato as he pulled out the wooden shrapnel from his leg and flung it into the air with one last thought before flashing away again. Got to hurry. He soon arrived at a new location, which is most likely his and Kushina's house of residence. While that was happening on the outskirts of Konohagakure no Sato, the masked man took Kushina to a secluded location and bound her in seals to hold her still. "Alright, what do you want?" asked Kushina while panting, trying to hold back the Kyuubi with what strength she could without losing consciousness. "I'm going to extract the Kyuubi from you and destroy Konoha," stated the masked man with his reply to Kushina's question. "No, you can't," said Kushina with a look of fear and shock on her face. "Minato's Jikukan ninjutsu, space-time ninjutsu, allows him to move instantly between locations that are marked with jutsu formulas," stated the masked man. "Those markings are incorporated into the sealing formula. That way Minato can protect you at all times, but he's far away now. The Kyuubi's seal has weakened due to childbirth. Do you know how long I have waited for this moment?" The masked man finishes. Safe house. Back at the safe house, Minato puts Naruto down in a bed specially made for him. "You'll be safe here," said Minato. "Naruto, please be patient, okay? I have to go and rescue your mother right now." Unknown location with Kushina. In the location Kushina is in, the masked man finally revealed his eye that is visible through the hole in his mask, which revealed the fabled Sharingan. With his Sharingan he went into Kushina's seal. "It's you," said the Kyuubi as if knowing who the masked man was. It was then that the fox was put into a genjutsu by the masked man. Which when the fox was put under the genjutsu, the Sharingan appeared within the irises of its eyes. When that happened, the seal degraded even more, releasing the fox from the fabricated mass of stone it was attached to by chains of chakra. On the outside of the seal a chakra cloak surrounded Kushina, taking the form of a two-tailed fox with the seal completely open and Kushina's eyes rolled back into her head. The masked man put his hand in a half-ram seal, and then said, "Come on out, Kaibi." And with that the fox was released from the seal into the world for the first time in over 60 years. "Ruah!" howled the fox into the night. With that the chakra cloak left Kushina and she fell to the ground in a heap. "Good, now we will head to Konohagakure no Sato," said the masked man with a hint of glee in his stoic attitude. Wait. said Kushina quietly as she slowly was able to get up on her hands and knees, getting the masked mont's attention. You Uzumaki are just amazing. You don't die right away when the Biju is extracted, stated the masked man. With that statement, the Kyuubi slowly turned its eyes to Kushina. You are the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. So I will let you die by his hand, said the masked man as the fox completely turned and swung his massive paw-like hand down at Kushina's downed form. The fox looked expectantly, but Kushina was no longer there. He looked up, and with a flash Minato was standing on top of a tree with Kushina in his arms, bridal style. You really are quick as a flash, said the masked man to Minato. But you're too late, he finished. Looking up into the tree, Minato and Kushina are in. Minato, Naruto, is he alright then? Asked Kushina through labored breaths. Yes, he's fine. He's in a safe place for now, said Minato with a nod. Good. Minato, that masked man is with the Kyuubi. They're heading to the village. Stop them, stated Kushina through her labored breathing. With that, Minato went into his Hokage mode and flashed away with Kushina in his arms. He flew away. That's fine, let's get to Konohagakure no Sato, said the masked man with a smirk hidden beneath his mask. With Kushina and Minato at the safe house. When Minato flashed away from the Kyuubi and the masked man, he arrived with Kushina in his arms at the safe house that Naruto is currently in. Minato moved over to Naruto with Kushina in his arms, which got her attention. Why? She asked. Never mind, just be with Naruto, said Minato while setting Kushina down net to Naruto. She stared at Naruto with tears welling up in her eyes, while Minato had a solemn look on his face. Naruto, said Kushina as she lightly hugged him close to her. When she did that, Minato solidified his resolve. He walked over to the wardrobe and opened it. On the inside was a white haori, high-collared trench coat, with red flames licking the bottom, and the kanji for Yondaime Hokage on the back. He reached in and grabbed it and slipped it on. Thank you, Minato, and good luck, stated Kushina, still holding onto Naruto. I'll be right back, said Minato in a voice that showed why he was the Hokage. Konoha. In the village of Konohagakure, it was a typical night. People out and about having fun, cats out prowling and people out drinking at bars, enjoying being around their family and loved ones, not knowing of what's to come upon the village. They were all ignorant of that fact, but still continued to have a good night. Walking down the center of Konoha, we find Kakashi, Hitaki, and Maida Guy. Look, why don't we just do rock paper scissors again? Asked Kakashi, talking to the ever-eccentric Maida Guy. Oh, come on, there must be something more exciting we can do. And you call yourself my rival, stated Guy as eccentrically serious as possible. We have to get an early start tomorrow, so let's just take a pass on tonight, stated Kakashi with an eye smile. A mission is no excuse. I have all this pent-up energy inside me, so there's no better time than right now for some really rigorous training. Honest to Kami discipline and hard work will lead us to success in future missions, stated Guy, trying to get Kakashi to train with him in his eccentric training. Noticing Kakashi stop, Guy moved in front of him and said, "Are you even listening to me?" "Forget about that for now," said Kakashi. "Do you sense something strange? As if there was suddenly a dark chill in the air?" questioned Kakashi, his recent years in Anbu kicking in. "The only thing that's chilly is your attitude. You must be more hot-blooded," yelled Guy in his unique eccentric way at Kakashi's blatantly casual attitude. Elsewhere in Konoha, in other parts of the leaf, other people were sensing the imminent chill in the air that came from nowhere, from what they know of. At the Uchiha compound, an Uchiha by the name of Itachi, Makoto Uchiha's firstborn son, was watching his younger brother Sasuke outside on the outdoor hallway looking at the moon. "I feel something, omens," said Itachi in worry. This got Sasuke to start crying because of the same feeling that Itachi felt. There, it's okay," stated Itachi, trying to calm his brother down. "What is this strange feeling? Of all the times for mom and dad to be out," thought Itachi. "Don't cry, Sasuke. No matter what happens, your big brother will protect you, I promise you that," stated Itachi to Sasuke with a small smile on his face. The Sandaime Hokage, who is in his office at home, also felt the disturbance. He grunted and blew out smoke from the pipe he is smoking at the moment. He looked out his window at the full moon that was hanging in the air. "It can't be," he said with no emotion in his voice. Edge of the village. At the edge of the village in a quiet neighborhood, the man in the mask that released the Kyuubi from Kushina landed on the ground and an ally. He slowly looked from his crouched position with a glint in his Sharingan eye, while raising his hand and yelling out. Kachiyose no Jutsu. In a huge cloud of white smoke the size of the Hokage monument, the Kyuubi no Kitsune was finally summoned to the leaf. The potency of the fox's chakra started to blow civilians and ninja alike away along with the surrounding buildings. "Is that?" said a civilian. "No way, it's the Kyuubi," yelled the same civilian. With that, the other civilians in the area started to run away as fast as they could. "Go Kyuubi!" yelled the masked man, which caused the Kyuubi to start destroying the village with every fiber of its being. It was crushing and blowing away buildings with its breath, killing civilians and ninja. Back with the Sandaime, Hokage and Anbu appeared in his office. "Sandaime-sama, it's the Kyuubi. The Kyuubi is inside Konoha," stated the Anbu to the Sandaime. "Hi, I know that. I'll go restrain him, you and the others go protect all the people of the village," ordered the Sandaime. "Hi," said the Anbu following orders. "Was Kushina's seal broken? We failed even with all the safeguards we put in place, Bawako," thought the Sandaime. Throughout the village, the older Jonin were ordering the younger Jonin, Chunin, and Genin to evacuate the civilians and get out themselves. The shinobi and kunoichi were attacking the fox the best they can. But with it being a chakra construct, it doesn't do much if at all any. The commanders were ordering the other ninja to attack the best they can to hold the fox off till all of the civilians were out. Up on the Hokage monument, Minato flashed to the tip of the highest point on his own carving dressed in his haori. He looked up and saw all the damage the fox has already done to the village, and thought, "As Hokage I must protect the village, my family. This is what I have to do right now." With a seriously calm face only a Hokage can have. "I won't let you destroy my home." The fox in the meantime continued to destroy the village, but then stopped and turned his head towards where Minato was standing on his carved head. "So you've noticed me, huh?" asked Minato to himself. With that, the fox roared and started gathering and condensing chakra into an orb most commonly known as the Biju Dama, tailed beast ball, and shot it at Minato, destroying more of the village in the process. "I won't let you do this," said Minato as he went through hand seals, creating a barrier that had his Hiraishin formula incorporated into it. When the Biju Dama reached the barrier, the formula expanded and encompassed it. Soon the ball of chakra was sent somewhere else outside the village with a gigantic explosion of power. "With this much power I have to carefully choose where I redirect his attacks," thought Minato, looking at where the blast came from. Down below, people watched what the Yondaime Hokage did. The jutsu that deflect the Kyuubi's attack, that's a Jikukan Kekai, spacetime barrier, stated Choza the Akamichi patriarch. "It's Minato," said Shikaku Nara, the head of the Nara clan. "Alright, let's move into," said the Sandaime, ordering people to move. "I've got to alert Sandaime-sama right away about what's going on," thought Minato, not noticing the masked man from before appear out of nowhere behind him until the last moment. Swinging behind him with one of his infamous tri-pronged kunai, Minato hit the man in the head and it went right through. The masked man grabbed Minato's wrist as his hand passed through it. "I'm your opponent," said the masked man. "And you're done for," he continued as he used his own Jikukan jutsu. Before he could finish, Minato flashed away from the masked man. He got away so fast. "Next time I will take you a lot quicker as soon as we touch," stated the masked man, making the half-Hitsuji seal. "My attack passed right through him, and a moment later he made himself solid and tried to pull me inside of him," thought Minato. What was that jutsu? At that moment the masked man teleported to where Minato had landed, surprising him. "Hee, you shall not escape," said the masked man with amusement. "He uses a Jikukan jutsu too. So that's how he was able to grab Kushina and move so quickly. He defeated the Anbu Black Ops assigned to Sandaime-sama, got past the highest level classified barrier, and knew the Kyuubi's seal is weakest during childbirth," thought Minato. Even more than that, he undid the Kyuubi's seal and tamed him. He slipped in and out of the village's barrier without triggering any alarms. "As far as I know, there's only one shinobi that could do all that." Minato looked at the masked man and asked, "Are you Madara Uchiha?" questioned Minato. With that, the masked man took off his hood to fully show his mask. "No, that would be impossible, he is dead after all," stated Minato. I wonder about that, said the masked man. In the end, it doesn't matter who you are. But why attack Konohagakure? Asked Minato. What would you like to hear? I could say I did it on a whim, or that I planned it, or that it's for war, or rather it's for peace, stated the masked man while dropping a chain out of his sleeve. Either way, he's not ordinary, he can control the Kyuubi, his Jikukan jutsu surpasses both Naidame Sama's and mine. And he's got some dangerous ideology. If I don't settle this now, we'll have even bigger problems than the Kyuubi. I'd transport myself to the village, but he'll come to the battlefield with me, it'll be chaos. If he's anything like Madara, he can't keep the Kyuubi under the Kachiyose no Jutsu for too long. I have to entrust the village to Sandaime Sama and just take this guy down right here right now, thought Minato, getting into a battle stance. Now that I've freed the Kyuubi, there is no hope for any of you, yelled the Madara Wantabe while charging at Minato, who started to charge back. Minato lunged forward with his kunai, passing right through Madara, while the masked man had a chain trailing behind him. Minato ran into the chain and was almost captured, but flashed away at the last moment to escape the chain. He arrived at a kunai close by while holding the half-Hitsuji seal. My physical attacks have no effect on him, but he makes himself solid when he attacks me. I have to aim for a mutual strike precisely timed. But he knows that he's vulnerable when he attacks, and considering the time remaining on the Kyuubi's Kachiyose no Jutsu, he won't want a likely long battle neither. Whoever attacks an instant quicker than the other will win this battle, thought Minato while the Madara Wantabe was moving slowly back and forth. Then they charged at each other, with Minato throwing his kunai at the man's head and watching it pass through. The masked man was reaching for Minato at the same time. They were closing in on each other now. As soon as the kunai completely passed through the masked man's head with his hand only a few inches away from Minato's arm, Minato created a large Rasengan. Just as the masked man was about to touch Minato, he said, "I win." It was at that moment that Minato flashed to the kunai he threw through the man's head and slammed the Rasengan into the man's back in a split second. Damn it, he flashed himself to his kunai, thought the masked man in pain. Hiraishin level 2, said Minato as the Rasengan ground deeper into the fake Madara's back, simultaneously planting a Hiraishin seal on his back and destroying the surrounding ground under the man. The man jumped out of the smoke, landing 20 feet away, holding his arm as it disintegrated. "You got me. You really are a slippery one. I never should have let my guard down around you," said the masked man in anger that he had lost. At that moment Minato flashed to the seal on the fake Madara's back and stabbed him with a kunai in the stomach. Hiraishin no Jutsu, of course, he must have marked me somewhere, thought the fake Madara. A contract seal, trying to separate the Kyuubi from me. Questioned, stated the fake Madara. With this the Kyuubi is no longer yours, exclaimed Minato triumphantly. In the village the Kyuubi let howl at finally being freed from the Sharingan-controlled Genjutsu as the Sharingan disappeared from the fox's eyes, reverting back to his slit eyes. Even though the fox was no longer being controlled, he still continued attacking the village, destroying and killing wherever his paw-like hands landed. In one part of the destroyed village, one Iruka Amino was with his mother and his father Sabachi Amino. "Iruka, are you alright?" asked Kiko, Iruka's mother. As soon as she finished speaking she slumped forward into Iruka's arms. "Mom, what's the matter?" asked Iruka, alarmed at why his mother slumped forward. Then he noticed the cut that went across her back horizontally. "Dad, look, it's Mom, she's been hit," yelled Iruka to his father, who was faced towards the Kyuubi as it destroyed more buildings. "Why didn't you stay at the shelter, Iruka? Leave your mother to me. You hurry up, and get out of here now," said Sabachi. "No Dad, I'm not just going to run away, and leave you and Mom behind here. I'm going to stay and protect Mom," yelled Iruka to his father, trying to get him to let him stay. "Don't you dare push me, son. It's a parent's duty to protect their children," yelled back Sabachi, trying to get his son to see reason, even though Iruka didn't want to. A little ways away on top of a building stood the Sandaime Hokage with a platoon of shinobi from Anbu to the regular Jonin. "We have to protect the village. We need to drive the Kyuubi outside of the village walls," ordered the Sandaime Hokage to the ninja behind him. "Hi," was his reply. "Buy me some time so I can ready my jutsu. Do not let up the attack," said the Sandaime, giving his last order. "Hi Sandaime-sama," was his reply. And with that the ninja took off to attack the Kyuubi with all they had. The fox started to knock the ninja out of the air while they jumped to throw kunai with explosive tags. Hiruzen in the meantime, bit his thumb to draw blood. He swiped the blood on his palm and went through the necessary hand seals. Kachiyose no jutsu, yelled the Sandame. Monkey King Enma. With a puff of smoke the king of monkeys appeared in all his glory. The Kyuubi so the seal was broken, stated Enma looking at the Kyuubi as it howled at being attacked. We'll drive it from the village. With the adamantine staff, said Hiruzen to Enma. Henge, transformation, gotcha! Exclaimed Enma as he hanged into a big staff-like weapon and flew right up into the air right into Hiruzen's hands. Now Enma, let's go! Exclaimed Hiruzen. Hi! Replied Enma. Extend! Yelled Hiruzen with his palm out, watching the Enma extend towards the fox. With a mighty roar from the fox as Enma in his staff form pushed him out of Konoha, breaking one of the surrounding walls in the process. Good, it has been driven out of the village. Now keep at him one after another, stated the Sandame, watching all the shinobi and kunoichi attack the fox. Minato, where are you? Thought Hiruzen. With Minato, you're worthy of your title Yondaime Hokage. Injuring me and separating the Kyuubi from me, but he will be mine one day. Stated the masked Madara. I shall rule this world, there are plenty of ways to do it. He finished while using his Jikukan jutsu to disappear. Given his tone, he's not joking around, thought Minato as he contemplated what the man said. Back in Konoha, Ruer, howled the fox, swatting at the ninja attacking it and crushing them. Hold the attack, all of you. Wait for the Yondaime Hokage, yelled a random Jonin. One of the ninja that were knocked out of the air was Sabachi Amino. Iruka, said Sabachi quietly before dying. A few hundred feet away, Iruka saw the whole thing and yelled. Let me go, my mom and dad are still fighting back there. As ninja carried him away from the battlefield. In the woods farther away from the battlefield, a group of young shinobi and kunoichi were surrounded by older Jonin. Listen up, you younger ninja, stay away from the Kyuubi, stated a red-eyed man talking to the younger ninja. What do you mean? Questioned a young woman also with red eyes. This is domestic trouble, not a war against other villages. There's no need for all of you to put your lives on the line for this. Replied the red-eyed man. You've got to be kidding, yelled the red-eyed girl. Stop it, Kurenai, just calm down, said a random shinobi standing next to the women now named Kurenai. You are also a ninja. You aren't going to live forever, you know, but my daughter, you're women too. Bequeath the will of fire on my future grandchildren. Please make that your oath to me, your father, for I do believe in you, said the red-eyed man with a small smile on his face, shocking Kurenai to her core. In a location on the Hokage monument, Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage, appeared on top of his own carving. He looked out over the village towards the Kyuubi and thought, this is bad. He's going to do that again, said the Sandame from the ground after he fell onto a knee trying to catch his breath. Sandame-sama, yelled a close-by shinobi who ran towards the Sandame. Back on the Hokage monument, Minato saw that the Kyuubi was charging up another Bijudama. With that, he started to go through the hand seals required for a summoning. Kachiyose. Yatai Kuzushi no Jutsu. Summoning. Food cart destroyer. And with that, Gamabunta, chief of the toads, appeared above the Kyuubi no Kitsune, landing on top of him with Minato on the toad's head. Is that? Said the Sandame with the shinobi standing next to him finishing for him. The Yondaime Hokage, yelled that ninja. I shall rule this world, was Minato's thoughts of what the fake Madara said. Kushina, forgive me, was Minato's last thought before yelling down to Gamabunta. Hold the Kyuubi just for a little while longer. I'll give it my best. But that's going to be tough even for me, said Gamabunta, forcing the fox down to the ground. I'm going to need a lot of chakra to transport such a large object away, said Minato to himself. With that, Minato built up his chakra to get the amount he needed to transport the fox away, which was currently still building up the Bijudama. Just as the fox closed his large maw over the ball of chakra, he was whisked away from the battlefield by Minato. Minato. He transported the Kyuubi with him, said the Sandame in shock of what his successor did. Over there, yelled one ninja, pointing in the horizon at the large ball of light caused by the Bijudama exploding. With Minato and the fox. Where the fox appeared as a now destroyed house, that looked like it was beautiful just before the arrival of the fox and his Bijudama. A short ways away Minato appeared carrying his son, Naruto, and his wife Kushina, panting while crouched because of the amount of chakra he used to transport the fox with his Hiraishin no Jutsu. I must erect a barrier now, said Minato the thought, but I don't have much chakra. I can still do it, Minato, stated Kushina while looking at Minato. She then concentrated on her chakra with a bit of effort, but soon chains made out of chakra shot out of Kushina's back in 5 different directions. They burrowed under the ground and wrapped themselves around the Kyuubi and made a net around them so no one can get in. Kushina, yelled Minato as he watched his wife cough up blood, and making baby Naruto start crying. Woke you up, huh? Sorry Naruto, stated Kushina through labored breaths, getting Minato to worry about her. Kushina, said Minato looking at Kushina. I'll take the Kyuubi with me, to my death. Because that way we can reduce the interval between now and when he re-emerges again, said Kushina, tightening the chains more around the fox. It's all I can manage now with the little chakra I have left, but I will be able to save you both. So thank you for everything you've done, stated Kushina with a sad but true smile on her face. Naruto, who obviously doesn't know what's going on because he is just a baby, started sniffling a little bit with tears at the corners of his eyes. Kushina, you're the one. It was you who made me the Yondaime Hokage, you made me a man, and you made me this baby's father. And, stated Minato in sadness that Kushina was thinking like this, about sacrificing herself. Oh, Minato, please don't give me that sad look. I'm happy because, you love me, and what's more, today is the birthday of our beautiful child. But most of all, if I were imagine me alive and our future, the 3 of us together as a family. I can't really picture us, just being anything but truly happy, said Kushina while Minato took her words in stride and started to cry. I guess if I were allowed just one regret, I wish I could have seen Naruto all grown up, I wish I could have seen. Kushina tried to finish but was interrupted by Minato. Kushina, there's no need for you to die in order to kill the Kyuubi, preserve what little chakra you have, for your reunion with Naruto, stated Minato to Kushina. I'm going to seal the rest of your chakra inside Naruto, it'll be part of an Hake no Fuin, 8 trigram seal, and then I will take the Kyuubi with me. Since I'm not a Jinchuriki, I will have to use the Shikifujin, dead demon consuming seal, stated Minato with conviction. While the fox was looking at Minato with contempt. You can't, if you cast that then you'll, tried to say Kushina, but Minato cut her off. And there's one other thing. I'm only going to seal half of the Kyuubi. It's physically impossible to seal this much power. But it's also strategically unwise. If you take the Kyuubi with you, there will be no Jinchuriki till he re-emerges. This will upset the balance of power between the Biju. With the Shikifujin we can at least seal away half of the Kyuubi forever. And the other half of the fox, I'll seal it inside Naruto, with the Hake no Fuin, said Minato, thinking about the future and what Jiraiya told him about the child of prophecy. I know what you're going to say, but remember what Jiraiya sensei said about world upheaval. And also the calamities that would accompany it. I've become convinced of 2 things today. First, that masked man who attacked he would bring catastrophe to the world, and second, the one who will stop him is this child. This infant, whose godfather is Jiraiya sensei, he will open up the future as a Jinchuriki. I know it, somehow I'm sure of it, finished Minato while looking back and forth between Naruto and Kushina. But Minato, said Kushina as the Sandaime Hokage arrived to the scene, to Minato already going through hand seals for the seal after he put Naruto on the ground. Shikifujin, yelled out Minato as the Shinigami, death god, appeared in its spectral form of long white robes, white hair, ashy skin, with a tanto in its mouth and beads wrapped around its wrists, with Minato's soul crucified behind him in front of the Shinigami. Let's believe in him, after all this child is now our son, stated Minato to Kushina. Over on the other side of the barrier stood the Sandaime and Enma the Monkey King. Those signs don't tell me, asked Enma. Yes, it's the Shikifujin, replied Hiruzen in sadness that his successor has resorted to that jutsu. After I have completed this seal, I'm going to seal your chakra inside of Naruto too. You won't have much time, but I want you to help him try to control the Kyuubi's power as a Jinchuriki, stated Minato with conviction and determination. But he's our son Minato. TCH, which is exactly why I don't want him to bear such a heavy burden, exclaimed Kushina. And tell me, why use the Shikifujin? So it's just so I can meet Naruto when he's grown up, especially if it's going to be for a short time. Then there's no need for you to die. I'd rather you stay with him and watch over him. I just don't understand why it has to be this way. Why does Naruto have to be sacrificed for the balance of power among the Biju, for his nation, for his village? Why do you have to sacrifice yourself at all? Just for me, please, exclaimed Kushina as she started to sob. To forsake one's nation and one's village is exactly the same as forsaking one's own child. Your very own homeland was destroyed, so you should know that. A harsh life awaits those without a land to call their home, stated Minato as serious as he can get in a situation like this. Besides, our family are ninja. Finally, even if I were to live, I could never be a substitute for you, said Minato as he crouched right in front of Kushina. You won't have much time with him, but there's something only you can tell Naruto. Something that I just can't, that's a mother's role. I'm not doing this just for you, I'm doing it for Naruto, finished Minato as he picked up baby Naruto. I die for my son, that's my duty as his father. Minato and Kushina stared at each other, seeing if the other would give up their resolve. While on the outside of the barrier, Kushina erected Hiruzen was testing it to see if he could break down, but discovered that it's impossible. Sandame-sama, what's wrong? Said a ninja that just arrived at the scene. It's no good, we can't get in any closer, this barrier is preventing the Kyuubi from escaping. It seems the two of them are planning to take care of the Kyuubi all by themselves, stated the Sandame to the other ninja present. Inside the barrier, the Shinigami's hand went through Minato's soul, and from there it traveled out of his body and sped towards the Kyuubi. Damn you, Yondaime Hokage! Roared the fox at Minato, taking half his chakra. Seal! Yelled Minato as the chakra was pulled away from the fox and pulled into Minato's gut with a swirl-like seal with 8 lines of calligraphic writing sprouting from it. My body is going numb, can't believe how heavy his chakra is, thought Minato as he received half of the fox's chakra. Damn you! Repeated the fox to Minato. It is the Shiki Fujin after all, I can't believe he used it, stated the Sandame watching the fox shrink. The Kyuubi is still alive though, couldn't he seal all of it away? It appears smaller, but, said one of the ninja that accompanied the Sandame as Minato summoned an altar. Alright, now for the Hake no Fuin. I'll seal the rest of the Kyuubi inside Naruto, said Minato, putting Naruto on the altar. The ritual altar, he's planning on sealing me up again, not inside that baby, said the Kyuubi. Kushina, who watched Minato put Naruto down, tried to move towards him and Naruto, but as soon as she started moving she started coughing up more blood. Kushina, are you okay? Yelled Minato as he started running towards her. But at that moment, when the fox saw Minato move away from Naruto, he thought he had an opportunity to stop himself from being sealed again, so he struck forward. There you are, roared the fox as he struck out at Naruto with his clawed hands. Minato and Kushina saw this and did what all parents would do, they both moved their bodies right in front of the claw that would have killed Naruto. The claw only coming to about 4 inches away from little Naruto, a drop of his parents' blood landing on his little chest. I said I was his father, dying for him is my duty, stated Minato to Kushina as he looked at her. Yes, but I'm his mother, it's mine too, replied Kushina. On the outside of the barrier, Hiruzen had a hard time making out what was going on but figured it out. There's a child in there too, stated the Sandame. Yes, and they saved it, said one of the accompanying ninja. Why you? Yelled the fox, enraged at not being able to kill its next host. I think this may be the first time that I've lost an argument. I guess it proves just how serious you are about doing this, Kushina told Minato. I thank you, Kushina, said Minato, wiping blood off his chin onto his palm, then going through hand seals. Kuchiyose no Jutsu. In a poof of smoke, a toad that looks like an accordion. Ah, the Kyuubi, yelled the toad before looking at Minato. And Yondaime-sama too. What is going on here? Questioned the toad before receiving an answer from Minato. Jiritora, I will give you the sealing formula's key. When I'm done, take it to Jiraiya-sensei to store it, stated Minato to the now named Jiritora. So that's it. Minato plans to make his own child the Kyuubi Jinchuriki to save the village, exclaimed the Sandame on the outside of the barrier, finally understanding what was going on inside the barrier. I confirm I received the key. Alright, I'm off now, said the toad, disappearing in a poof of smoke. And now we're safe, said Minato as the Shinigami licked the Tanto blade it pulled out of its mouth. Kushina, I'm not going to last much longer, I'll start the Hake no Fuin right now. I still want to put some of my chakra in Naruto, we won't see him for quite a while so let's tell him what we want to say. Minato said to Kushina, inciting her to start speaking to Naruto. Naruto, don't be a picky eater, just eat a lot so you grow up big and strong, and make sure you bathe every day, and you stay warm too. Also, don't stay up too late, make sure you get plenty of sleep, don't forget to make friends as well. You don't need a ton of them, okay, just a few is fine as long as they're ones you can really trust. And, your mom wasn't very good at this, make sure you study hard, and learn your ninjutsu. Always remember everyone is good at some things, and not so good at others. So even if something doesn't go well, don't get depressed, okay, when you're at the academy, respect your teachers and the other classmen. Oh, now this is important, regarding the 3 prohibitions of the shinobi. Be extra careful about lending and borrowing money, take your pay, put it in a savings account. No alcohol, not until you have aged. Too much sake is bad for you, so practice moderation. And another prohibition is women. Remember, I am one, so I don't know too much about it, tch. Keep in mind this world is made up of men and women. And so, at some point you will notice girls and that's normal, just be careful and don't fall for the bad ones. Just go out there and find someone that's like me. Oh, that reminds me. Speaking of the 3 prohibitions, you should be wary of Jiraiya-sensei Databane, said Kushina with labored breaths. Naruto, I'm sorry to say there will be plenty of hardships and painful times ahead. Just be true to yourself, make sure to have dreams, and the confidence to make those dreams come true. Oh Naruto, there's so much, oh so much more, there are so many things I wish I had time to pass on to you. So much more I want to tell you. I wish I could stay with you longer. I love you, finished a crying Kushina to Naruto. Minato, I'm sorry I used up your time, exclaimed Kushina to Minato, thinking he was mad at her for using up the time he had left. No, it's all right. Naruto, my words to you, oh I guess your talkative mom said it all, Hake no Fuin, said Minato, and that was the end of his and Kushina's life and the beginnings of a legends. It has been a week since that night. A week since Konohagakure no Sato, otherwise known as the village hidden amongst the leaves, was attacked by the Kyuubi no Kitsune, 9-tailed fox. Many people, ninja and civilian alike, were killed that night, but Konoha's most tragic loss was that of the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze. And because of that, the now reinstated Sandaime Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi was in a predicament. With the death of his successor, not only leaving his newborn son Naruto Uzumaki orphaned, but also a Jinchuriki. But this was not the only predicament. His, Hiruzen's, teammates, the councils, and his childhood best friend were being what all male Naras say everything is troublesome. Flashback. Hokage office 4 days ago. 3 days since the attack. 3 long days of disorder and mayhem, in which he was forced to take office again at the untimely death of his predecessor. 3 very long days of the most grueling and ancient tortures known to man were inflicted upon the old man, and he cursed Minato for making him take back this position he gladly gave up. What were these tortures forced upon the old Hokage, you ask? Of course it is the murderous meetings with the vicious, bloodthirsty village council. Well, it was the civilians trying to get the power. The shinobi were still trying to see who was left in their ranks, seeking to grab power with the loss of their Yondaime Hokage. And the Sandaime had to rein in these fire-breathing demons to make sure they got nothing, searching the law books and history of Konoha he knew so well to make it impossible for them to get anything. And then there was the most heinous of terrors that sent a shiver down any cage's back. It came straight from the 9th circle of hell, and it stayed with them until death or relinquishment of office. Yes, it is none other than the dooming paperwork. He sighed, facing away from the mountains of paper that littered the office, his office once again, as he gazed out the window into the afternoon air to see his destroyed but recuperating village. Despite what many would think, he had not been glad to don the robes and hat of office again, but he knew Minato did the right thing. He wished so badly. The sky was the blue shade closest to the now past Namikaze's, Senju, eyes, and now it was made jealous by his son's eyes. Speaking of the boy, he wished so badly that he could hide him away from the world, protecting the heir of Minato and Kushina from the cruel world, but he couldn't. If he was anything like his parents, he would always be the center of attention, and of course demand much socializing with others. But he couldn't very well put him into an orphanage because he knew he will be neglected after this meeting he has to go to. He knew he couldn't take care of him because the council would absolutely try to make sure he had as little contact with the child as possible, that much he was certain of. He needed to stay on the council's good side for now, even if they held no official authority, not only to protect his unsteady position, but to be able to protect the sun-kissed blonde-haired child. He couldn't give him to Jiraiya or Kakashi, because that would draw too much attention to them from enemies outside the village and from within. He couldn't think of who to give the boy to protect him, and raise him into a fine young man, or if he wanted to into a shinobi. Even though that would be inevitable with him being a Jinchuriki. Then Hiruzen remembered Minato was adopted. So that would mean that he may have biological family on Minato's side still around. That gave the old Hokage an idea that would rock the foundations of Konoha and the elemental nations for many years. "Hyo, Panther," said Hiruzen. Which caused an Anbu with a panther mask to appear on one knee waiting for her orders. "Fetch Dr. Asagi for me," ordered Hiruzen. "Hi, Hokage-sama," replied the female Anbu member shining to the hospital. It took all but 5 minutes for the Anbu to return with the doctor both in kneeling positions in front of their Hokage. "You asked for me, Hokage-sama?" questioned Asagi. "Yes, I did. Hyo, you may leave," said Hiruzen to the female Anbu member who left right away. "I asked you here because I have a mission for you," started Hiruzen, getting Asagi's attention. "What type of mission, Hokage-sama?" questioned Asagi. "This mission will be classified an S-ranked secret. I want you to do a blood test on Minato Namikaze," stated the Sandame, seriously, getting a shocked look from Asagi. "May I ask why, Hokage-sama?" asked Asagi. Hiruzen got up from his desk and walked to the door and motioned for Asagi to follow him. They exited the office to the hallway and walked down the corridor till they reached a room guarded by Anbu, one with a Hitsuji mask and one with a Ryu mask. The Hokage nodded to the two Anbu, who bowed to him as he opened the door and walked in with Asagi right behind him. When they were in the room, Asagi noticed it was a nursery, and in the middle of the room up against the far wall was a bassinet that had a small blonde child in it sleeping. Asagi also sensed that there were 4 other additional Anbu in the room guarding the young child. Hiruzen walked over next to Naruto and said, "This child is Naruto Uzumaki, the new Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune," said Sarutobi, getting a nod out of Asagi, who already knew that from being the medic at the scene the night of the attack. "As you already know, he is the child of Minato Namikaze, and Kushina Uzumaki, as you were running tests on him to see if he was healthy 3 days ago." Getting another nod out of Asagi. "What I want you to do is going to be an S-ranked secret. I want you to run a test on Minato's blood and run it against any and all DNA samples possible in the Konoha medical database," informed Sarutobi, getting a shocked look from Asagi. "But sir, the database is a collection of all medical records from around Hai no Kuni, which numbers in the millions," stated Asagi, getting a nod from Hiruzen. "Yes, that is true, but I want you to only do Konoha's ninja database," said Hiruzen, smirking with amusement, getting an embarrassed chuckle from Asagi as she rubbed the back of her head. "I knew that," replied Asagi, getting an amused chuckle out the old Hokage. After that short stint of amusement, the Hokage and Asagi got serious once more. They both were looking at baby Naruto. Which caused a question to pop into Asagi's head. "Hokage-sama, may I ask why you want me to do this?" "I want you to do this because I believe one of Minato's biological parents are still out there in the world. And another thing is, I don't want, and can't let Naruto be uncared for without someone around to protect him from the people in this village that will try to use him for their own goals." "Danzo," finished Sarutobi, looking at Asagi seriously, expecting a reply. With her Hokage's finished explanation, Asagi got a determined look on her face, bowed to him and said, "Hi, Hokage-sama. I will do my best to find out if young Naruto's grandparents are still alive, but it will take a few days to get through them all, sir." "That's fine. Now if you would excuse me, I have a meeting with the councils to tell them about Naruto and to listen to them bicker about everything," said the Sandame, motioning for one of his Anbu guards to pick up Naruto and bring him with. As soon as Hiruzen left the room, Asagi swore silently to Naruto that she would find his family at all costs, and left right after her Hokage to complete her mission. Council chamber with Sarutobi. The walk to the council chambers was long and dark in his mind. Rubbing the bridge of his nose, he collected himself before having to go to yet another meeting, this time bringing news of Naruto to them. He had every viable speech ready, every loophole checked, and ready to answer any question they had. It would be the most prepared battle in his life. As he came close the magnificent building which at times is the home of the daimyo of Hai no Kuni, when he is here in Konoha, he saw that his Anbu guard had separated. 2 watching over baby Naruto had moved ahead to the chamber doors while 2 stayed behind to watch over him. Soon all them were guarding him once again, though one of the Anbu, that was female Tori, Bird, was holding a sleeping Naruto gently while rocking him back and forth silently, keeping baby Naruto calm and asleep. His lungs gasping for a little air when he shifted in Tori's arms, before she continued in a slow pattern. The Hokage smiled gently, running a hand through the already formed small blonde spikes, and they were soft and silky despite their appearance. With a nod to the 4 Anbu, he headed into the room first, knowing other Anbu were well hidden for means of protection. The round table had already been filled with the shinobi clan heads, except the chairs of the Senju, Uzumaki, and Hitaki, along with many other respectable jonin, and prominent civilians that made up the village council, and Danzo, the ex-Anbu commander. They all turned to him, either bowing or nodding their heads to show full respect or at least some form of respect. He made his way to his chair, and sat without any prompt with the 4 Anbu behind him, though the one with Naruto in her arms was more hidden than the other 3. Sarutobi spoke gravely, "Not many of you know what really happened the night the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked. So I will give you the bare details." Minato-kun had no other choice than to seal the Kyuubi into a human child, making the boy a Jinchuriki. As his dying request, the Yondaime asked that everyone in Konoha sees this child as a hero, because he was sacrificed to be the bearer and prison of the Kyuubi, protecting us with his very life. With that, Tori stepped forward, showing the room the blonde whisker-marked child. Gasps were heard around the room, and then muttering. Then the opposition came. It came first, naturally, from one of the civilians. "Kill it now, before the demon breaks out." Many of the other council members agreed to this point, though several stayed silent, looking at the child with scrutinizing eyes, not so easily swayed by the emotions like their counterparts. The ninja in the room, however, stayed quiet. Many already knew who the boy was. The looks were a dead giveaway. And they knew who the boy's parents were, so that was another giveaway. One of the civilian counselors, a haggard elderly woman, turned to the silent ninja in the room, mainly to their Hokage, and asked in a voice that oddly quieted and gained everyone's attention. "What do you think? You are after all the experts on these things. We know nothing of these skills, or what it takes to keep the demon secure in the boy's body." That actually shocked the shinobi, that a civilian would come to them for an opinion in something they knew more about, instead of making their rash judgments again. But even more shockingly was when Kazashi Haruno answered the woman matter-of-fact. "The boy is human, not the fox, and the seal will hold." The Yondaime would never place a faulty seal on a child. And as once being a shinobi and a longtime friend to Minato, I know that his seal mastery was the best. It rivaled, if not surpassed, his own sensei, Jiraiya the Gamma Sennin. The boy is the only reason we live at this very moment, and we should honor the Yondaime's last wish, and celebrate the rising of a hero. Finished Kazashi, getting nods of agreement and appreciation from the shinobi in the room. All the Sandaime Hokage could do was smile appreciatively at Kazashi and send him a nod of thanks. Kazashi nodded back to the Hokage with a small smile also on his face. But the happiness was drained from the shinobi of the room once Danzo decided to put his 2 cents in. "Hiruzen, I ask that you give the Jinchuriki to me, so he can become a weapon for the village," asked Danzo, who got glares from some shinobi and agreements from some of the civilians. Hiruzen looked at Danzo with blank eyes and a stoic face and said, "No, the boy will not grow up to be an emotionless weapon just for the good of the village, as you will put it. He will grow up to make friends and have a happy life and be seen as the hero the Yondaime asked him to be," said the Sandaime seriously, glaring at Danzo with a little bit of unrestrained age. "Just to be clear, if anything in this meeting is spoken publicly, everyone here will be charged with treason," stated the Sandaime to everyone. The civilians were sweating a little at this. "You are all dismissed," said Hiruzen. "It has been a month and a half since Asagi was assigned the mission to find the late Yondaime Hokage's biological family bloodline, by testing his DNA against tens of thousands of shinobi and kunoichi over the last 50 years who are alive or have died in recent years. When Asagi started the search, she started with the civilians who have become ninja 50 years ago and moved through to the shinobi clans year by year. So far she has made it through 14 years, which was during the first shinobi world war leading up to the second. Aligning with Minato Namikaze's date of birth. Some of the DNA samples that were stored were not stored properly, so they were deteriorating for quite some time before she found them. Though it was not much to ruin them, but it was enough to make it take longer to match the DNA samples up for the overall results of the tests. At the start she thought about looking at the results pinging on the computer that was scanning the genetics database, but decided to put it off till it was finished with the entire database. Now a month and a half later it is almost complete with only a few hundred more samples to go, which would only take up to an hour to finish. As the hour passed by, Asagi was getting excited. She didn't know why, but she had to guess it had to do with it almost being done, or that she would be able to figure out who her Yondaime Hokage's parents are. She could only guess. As the hour finished, the machine doing the tests slowed to a stop. When it stopped, Asagi finally pulled the result sheet with all the results listed on it, full of the matches. She started to look over it and noticed a consistency in the results. They all had the one gene that was the same. But two of them stood out the most. She looked through the list that was on the computer screen of those two DNA samples, and was even more surprised and dumbfounded. She quickly got up and left the genetics laboratory of the hospital to go report to the Hokage of her findings. Hokage's office. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage, thought that today would be a normal day. A normal day of doing paperwork and dealing with his advisors Homura Mitokado, Kaharu Utatane, and Danzo Shimura. They became even more annoying than before he chose Minato as the next Hokage, especially now when it comes to the village's Jinchuriki, Naruto Uzumaki. A little over a month ago he ordered his best medic Nin Asagi, aside from Tsunade, who isn't here at the moment, to run DNA tests to find out who his successor's parents are. As he continued his work on the paperwork, he heard a few hurried raps on his office door. "Come in," said the Sandaime, taking a puff off the pipe in his mouth. As he was doing that, Asagi barged into the room, panting a little bit from running here, but also because she was excited. "Hokage-sama," said Asagi with a bow to her Hokage. "The DNA results have come in," she said a little bit too loudly in her excitement. The Sandaime had a surprised look on his face for a second, then let out a chuckle. "Hee hee, that is wonderful news," exclaimed the Sandaime. "May I see the results?" With that, Asagi handed him the result sheet. Hiruzen looked over it and was absolutely dumbfounded with what he saw. He looked up at Asagi with a serious face and said with no emotion, "Is this accurate?" "Yes, Hokage-sama, the machine used to determine the DNA has an accuracy of 99% match rates. This is as accurate as it can get," stated Asagi with her own serious and emotionless voice. The Hokage looked at the list as he reread the two matches marked as highest percent match-up for Minato's parents. It read maternal parent 99% match, Tsunade Senju, paternal parent 99% match, Jiraiya. This would explain why Tsunade left all those years ago, and confirmed Hiruzen's suspicions all those years ago. As Hiruzen reread again and again, he also noticed that Jiraiya's genes had some marks that were identical to Tsunade's. But not only hers, all the people listed on here. He figured it was a clan trait, so to speak. But if it was a clan trait, why would Jiraiya have it? As Hiruzen scanned over the list some more, he noticed that Jiraiya's genes matched up to two other people on the list. One being surprising enough, the Nidaime Hokage Toburama Senju, and the other must have been Toburama's illegitimate daughter. Which would explain why Jiraiya wasn't born into the Senju clan like Tsunade. As Hiruzen was finishing reading it again for a third time, he got a determined look on his face and said with authority and power, "Anbu." With that, a squad 4 Anbu captains were in charge of guarding him appeared in a kneeling position. "I am giving you all in your teams an A- rank mission to find Tsunade Senju and bring her back to the village on my orders. Search high and low for her, go." "Hi," said the Anbu captains, going to gather their teams for this mission. As soon as the Anbu left, Hiruzen bit his thumb and swiped it on his palm. Then started to go through hand seals. When he finished, he slammed his palm onto the floor of his office. "Ninpo. Kachiyose no Jutsu. Ninja art. Summoning Jutsu." With a burst of white smoke, a small monkey appeared with a Konoha headband wrapped around its forehead. "What is your order, Hiruzen-sama?" questioned the small monkey with a slight bow. I need you to go to Mount Myoboku and request to the Toad Elders to have Jiraiya return to the village as soon as he can. Stated the Sandaime. Hi, Hiruzen-sama right away, said the little monkey as he disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Hiruzen then looked up to Asagi, who has stayed quiet till now, with a small smile. You may leave, Asagi-san. Thank you for your work, have some time off too. And don't forget, do not tell anyone of this till I talk to Tsunade and Jiraiya about this. Is that understood? Said the Sandaime to Asagi. Hi, Hokage-sama, said Asagi with a bow and left the room. Hiruzen turned to the window and looked out to the far reaches of the village, admiring it along with the fall weather. This is going to be an interesting next couple of years for the village. Somewhere in Hai no Kuni 1 week later. In a casino somewhere in Hai no Kuni sat a blonde-haired woman in the style of two pigtails, wearing a green hori with the kanji for gamble on the back. This woman's name was Tsunade Senju, the granddaughter of the Shodem Hokage, Hashirama Senju, and was also part of the Densetsu no Sannin, legendary 3 ninja. As she was playing, she had an ominous feeling come over her, which was at the moment when she went and pulled the lever for machine down to start another spin. Not more than 30 seconds later, Tsunade got 3 straight money signs in a row that represented the casino's jackpot. As soon as she hit the jackpot, Tsunade started to frown deeply. She knew that something has happened or something is going to happen, so she quickly collected her winnings and left the casino to her hotel to collect her late lover's niece Shizune. As she reached her hotel and went up to her room, she opened the door. Shizune, yelled Tsunade. We are leaving. Shizune, who had been in the bathroom at the time, came out in only a bathrobe and looked at her master and said, Hi Tsunade-sama. As she started changing into her traveling kimono. They soon finished packing 30 minutes later and were on their way to check out of the hotel and leave the town. As Tsunade was walking down the street, she stiffened a little when she felt the presence of 4 Jonin-leveled chakra signatures close by. No doubt they were Anbu, because as she looked in the direction of the signatures, the ninja were well hidden. To stay hidden, she put an undetectable genjutsu around her and Shizune so they can escape. Her and Shizune quickly made their way out of the town on their way to the next one. Yu no Kuni, hot water country. In the country of Yu no Kuni, a country famous for its hot springs and famous spas. One of Konoha's strongest ninjas sat peeking through a hole in one of the walls separating the male side of the hot springs and the female side. Jiraiya, if the Densetsu no Sannin, legendary 3 ninja, was looking at all the naked women bathing in the waters hidden from public view, giggling like a little schoolgirl while jotting down notes in his notebook. He is also the author of the world-famous Icha Icha Paradise novel series and the not-so-famous Tales of an Utterly Gutsy Ninja. As he was doing that, a small toad appeared in a poof of smoke next to him, croaking, waiting for Jiraiya to acknowledge him. Jiraiya looked to the small toad and sighed. What is it? Jiraiya asked the small toad, who croaked then started to speak. The elders received a message from the Monkey Clan requesting that you return to Konoha as soon as you can. Croaked out the toad, making Jiraiya wonder what his sensei wanted to urgently. Okay, go tell Sarutobi sensei that I will be back in the village after I check on my spy network, said Jiraiya to the small toad. The small toad croaked in acknowledgement and then poofed away back to Mount Myoboku. Jiraiya turned back to his notepad with a small frown, thinking about what it could be that his sensei would want, but shrugged it off till he got back to the village within the next few months to a year.